Welcome, everybody. My name is Mustafa, and today in YCharts, we'll be talking about how to master portfolio excellence along with Charles Schwab. I'll be your host today. My name is Mustafa. I am one of the account managers here at YCharts. I help support our clients in the West Coast region. As you can see, I'm also joined by my friend and fellow panelist, Chris Candela.
Oh, thank you, Mustafa. So I'm part of Schwab's third-party integrations team. I'm actually a relationship manager on that team. So my clients are third-party vendors such as YCharts, the Tamaracks, the Black Diamonds of the world. So the work I do is not directly with advisors, but rather with the vendors who offer advisors fintech. And the role is really keeping those vendors up to date on the integrations that Schwab has, keeping them in the loop in terms of integration strategy, and just really kind of being the thought partner around how they pull Schwab data into their platforms. Because there's a couple ways they can get data into it. That term integration is somewhat nebulous at times. With the Schwab program, integration means either an API connection, which is called application programming interface, single sign-on, trading, or secure file sites. So there's a number of ways a third party can get data from Schwab into their platform. We've got over 250 third parties in our program. We've got more than 20 integration types, and within those integration types, there's multiple options for data flows as well. So our program has just grown dramatically in the past couple of years. And it takes partners like YCharts and third-party vendors like them to really make the program successful. We can offer all the integrations we want, but if there's not a vendor out there that's really taking advantage of it and really just knocking it out of the park in terms of using that integration to help their users. So YCharts has integrations. They can bring in account positions into their platform, and they're actually one of the few vendors who can integrate with our iRebal platform. So really glad you guys are here. Mustafa, I'm really excited for you to go ahead and jump into the demo, and we'll do some Q&A at the end.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. And thank you for all of you for joining today. To learn more about YCharts and view our other webinars, be sure to check out our webinar library. If you have a question that comes up during my demo or this call, go ahead. You can drop it in the chat. There will be a Q&A session here at the end in the next 10-15 minutes at the end of this call here. I would also like to please keep in mind that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. I'd also like to point out that a recording of this webinar will be emailed to everyone afterwards. And then for any new users on this call, we do have a special offer. You can actually receive up to 20% off a YCharts professional subscription through October 24th. So when we talk about YCharts, it's important to bring up these four quadrants. YCharts is built around workflows, not just information. You'll get a streamlined experience from research to client ready in minutes, not hours. Each quadrant represents a workflow that often lives in different systems. YCharts unifies them, cutting down time, reducing context switching, and helping advisors move from insights to impact faster. First quadrant we'll talk about is market monitoring. Advisors need to stay current without getting buried in noise. YCharts surface the signals that matters, from macro trends to sector movements to yield curves. Whether you're prepping for a client call or scanning for risk and opportunities, YCharts helps you stay ahead of the headlines and market events that clients are asking about. The next quadrant is research and analysis. This is where informed decisions begin. Advisors can screen for equities, funds, and ETFs based on any metrics, then run side-by-side comparisons, track performances, and dig into fundamentals. You're not just pulling data, you're evaluating, backtesting, and getting to answers faster. When we talk about portfolio strategy and construction, this is where informed decisions begin. This is where, whether you're building models, running scenarios analysis, or evaluating portfolio fit, YCharts helps you design strategies that align with your client goals and build allocations that reflect real-world clients' needs all in one place. And then lastly is client and proposal communication. YCharts makes it easy to create white label proposals and reports that reinforce your value and simplify complex topics. Using visual and data to guide conversation, calm client nerves, and highlight how your strategy supports their long-term goals. It's not about showing, it's not just telling. So I'll go ahead. What we'll start with here is how to get the integration from Schwab set up in YCharts, and I'll be going over a demo workflow. So going into YCharts here, what we'll start with is going up top to support, and then under resources, we want to hit integrations. You can see there is a list of all the integration partners that we work with. And you scroll down, you're going to see Schwab. From here, you're going to see an activate toggle on switch. Go ahead and click on that. You're going to then greet it with a prompt to log in through Schwab. Go ahead and follow those prompts. Once you've logged in successfully, it's going to bring you back to this screen, and you're going to see that it is now active. Once this integration is active, what we can do is we can scroll up top here. We can go to Tools. Under Manage, we're going to hit Portfolios. And you'll now see at the top right, there's an option that says Import Holdings. We'll go ahead, we'll select that. And there's going to be that Schwab icon once again. We'll click into there. Now, when it comes to importing holdings from Schwab, we have a few ways to do it. You can either search by the client's name, you can search by the account number, or as Chris pointed out earlier, you can also bring in models or portfolios from iRebal themselves. For this example, I'll be using a client's name, and you can see even if I just use A as the example and I hit submit, it's going to then pull in everything associated with that name. And this one, I'll be looking for my demo account. And then from here, you want to then select which account you'd like. From here, we can hit next. You'll then see all the accounts associated with that name are going to populate here. Now I'm going to pause here. You can see up top, right now we have it selected as a client portfolio. Within YCharts, we also have the ability to create household portfolios. So if this client had more than 2 accounts, we can select both of them. And what YCharts will do is create 2 separate client portfolios as well as a household for that client. I'm going to stick with client portfolio for now. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select all accounts. And then from here, you can see a drop down that shows, would you like to import it as individual account holdings or as a single holdings? I always recommend doing the account holdings option first. From here, we'll go ahead, we'll hit import. And once you hit import, you can get greeted on this screen. So I know one question that comes up is, what information does Schwab share with YCharts? And you'll see all we're going to be getting from Schwab is the last 4 of their account, as well as their account holdings, and then in dollar amounts as well. So we're not going to be displaying any full names, no sensitive information here. Again, just going to be the last 4 of their account. You can see on this one it has the address, which you also have the ability to then go ahead and edit the description as needed, but no sensitive data is being transferred over to YCharts. From here, we have a couple different options. Maybe you can come in, we can then remove or change the benchmark that's associated with this account. We can change rebalance frequency. You can see we also have the option to enter a advisory fee. I'll add one in there for us. And then scrolling down, we can then see it's going to then pull in all the holdings associated with that portfolio. And from here, all I have to do is hit save, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to save that portfolio for us. Go ahead, we'll click into this account here for us. You can see we went from that integration setup to getting a portfolio in YCharts within a few minutes here. But once you have the account pulled into YCharts, what are some tools we can use to maybe take this from a client portfolio into an analysis, or how can we do research or present this to a client? The first tool I always like to look at in YCharts is going to be allocation. And what allocation allows us to look at is what is the asset allocation in this account? So we can see it's broken up by cash, stock, bonds, any convertible, preferred, and others. We'll also break down region exposure, Americas, Great Europe, Greater Asia. We'll break down market cap, bond sector, stock style exposure, bond credit quality exposure, stock exposure, and then bond maturity exposure as well. Now, another question I know clients always have is, well, what if I want like the under the hood look of this account? When I want to look at maybe some of the underlying holdings, can I do that in YCharts? And you absolutely can. So you can see right next to holdings, or allocation, excuse me, there's a holdings tab. We'll click into it, and you'll see there's 4 different tabs up here. I'll be going to the categorize tab. And what categorize is allow me to look at is I can then see by either holdings or underlying holdings, and I can then group them by broad asset class, fund category, equity style, and sector. You can see on this example, I have them set to broad asset class by the holdings, and it's able to break down what in this portfolio is a taxable bond, what's that current weight, what's the net expense ratio, distribution yield, AUM, and turnover ratio. For performance, we'll show the 1-year, 3-year, 5, and 10-year total returns, as well as some risk metrics such as alpha, beta, and max drawdown. You can also see there's a US equity, sector equity, commodities, international equity, and then municipal bonds, as well as other. Scrolling back up here, you can also go into comparables. And maybe the conversation is you want to take this client's portfolio and compare it to one of your models. And you can come over here, you can hit add comparables. And for this one, I'll be using a 60/40 YCharts benchmark here, or portfolio. And you can then see side by side what are the holdings in each of those portfolios. Going back over to quote, the next tool I like to look at is going to be stress test. Now, what stress test allows you to look at is it's going to take this portfolio, it's going to then also bring in the benchmark, and it's going to show how does this portfolio fare in certain economic conditions. So you can see on this one, we'll be showing how this portfolio did during the 2022 inflation drawdown, how it did during the coronavirus crisis, the trade crisis with China, sustained volatility, oil price collapse, and the interest rate hike. So again, a really powerful visual, very powerful visual to show clients. You can also then take this, hit export, and you can then, it's going to be downloaded as a PDF option for you here. You can also see up top, we have the option of a fundamental chart. If I click on that, it's going to then take this portfolio and bring it into a fundamental chart. And from here, we have a few different options. We can actually choose separate financial metrics. We can maybe change, hey, we want to switch them from an S&P benchmark over to a 60/40. So I can come up top, I can look for my 60/40 benchmark. I can then compare how their portfolio fares against the S&P, also against the 60/40 benchmark as well. The next tool I want to look at is going to be reports. This is going to be really crucial for when we're presenting to clients and you want a really clean and nice report to show them. If you go up top to reports, you'll first see our report types are grouped by 1 security, 2 securities, and 3 securities. The best way I always like to think about this is, do you want to just show this portfolio? Would you like to show this portfolio and maybe one of your models as a comparison? And then 3+ securities are great for maybe sitting down with a client and showing each of your models that you may have, or 3 of their separate client portfolios at once. For this example, I'll be using a fixed tear sheet. I'll be using the 1-page landscape report. I'll hit start. And once that's downloaded, pop over to the report. You can see on this report, we'll first start with a chart that's showing the total return level % change versus the benchmark. Coming over to the right-hand side, we're going to then show if there's an advisory fee attached to this account, what is the net expense ratio, if there's a rebalance frequency, and then what is this benchmark that we're looking at for this portfolio. We're also going to show asset allocation, just like we saw earlier on the allocation tab, as well as market capitalization, bond sector exposure, stock sector exposure, bond maturity, risk, bond credit quality, style exposure, and we'll also show the top 10 underlying holdings, as well as the top 10 holdings overall. Now, the really great thing in YCharts is all of our reports are customizable. So what you're seeing is our standard tear sheet template. But again, you have the ability to go ahead, and as you're looking at this, you're thinking, hey, this is a great report, but I don't want market capitalization on there. Go ahead, we can actually then remove that option there for us. Again, full customizability on how to customize these reports here for you. Going back into the portfolio, the next tool we're going to be looking at is going to be scenarios. Scenarios is an incredibly impactful tool that shows how either a withdrawal or contribution can affect a portfolio. And what we'll do here is we're going to go to the right-hand side, and you'll see there's this quick flows option. And what quick flows allows me to look at is it's going to take this portfolio that's already been plugged in, and you can see there's multiple different tools within YCharts I can plug this portfolio into. For this example, I'll be selecting a historical retirement withdrawal. And then within a click of a mouse click, what I'm able to look at is, here's my security. It's comparing it to the benchmark again. It's already inputted a start date and an end date. So this is a 10-year withdrawal. You can then enter in your initial investment. And then down at the scenarios, if I hit edit, it's going to open this up and you can see this is a withdrawal of 4% done annually. Again, with that start date from above and that same end date. Once you hit calculate, you'll then see it's going to then able to show it on a chart for us. So taking a look at this chart, this orange line that you see up top, that is the S&P. That's their benchmark total return. The green line following that is going to be their portfolio base case, meaning if they were not to withdraw any money, so maybe in this example, client comes to you and says, hey, we want to remove X amount of cash from our portfolio every year, and you want a way to show them maybe that's not the best possible decision for you at this moment. You can then use base case to show how the portfolio would grow instead without taking those withdrawals. This purple line you see right below the green, that's going to be their account minus the withdrawals. So you can see that significant difference here with and without the withdrawals. And then lastly is going to be this blue line, which is their net contributions and withdrawals. So this is going to be the difference from $1 million that they started with and where do they end up after that withdrawal rate period. And then from here, you can also see that we're going to display a bar chart. And I can actually click an annual, and it's going to show annually how much is going to be removed from the portfolio over time. We'll also show a contribution table, which I can actually kick over to annual. And this also then breaks it down, right? So in 2015, we had a starting value of $1 million. And in 2025, we ended with this ending value. Ending value right here. You can then easily hit export and you can hit download PDF. And this is going to download this page for you in a printable PDF format that you can then attach to any one of our reports. Going back into quick flows, and as we maybe circle around, getting a little bit more deeper dive into the portfolio, you can see under holdings analysis, there's a holdings risk metric. So maybe you plug in your portfolio and you want to look at some certain risk metrics. All by clicking on risk metrics, it's going to bring us up into a new tool in YCharts called comp tables. And from here, you can see that portfolio being selected. And then here are some financial metrics that we will then plug in for you, including alpha, beta, any return, historical ratio, Sortino, max drawdown, and then ending monthly value at risk. Now, even though this is a plug and play and is almost like a template, these are all fully customizable, and you can see I'm able to come in. Maybe I want to remove alpha, I want to remove beta, and I can come in, I can hit browse, and we have about 4,500 metrics for you to choose from. But I can then select, I want to look at maybe return performance. I want to show the 1-day return. I want to show the annualized 10-year price return. And I'll hit submit. It's able to then show that information here for us. Going back over into quick flows, you'll also see, so right now we have that portfolio. We also have the option of a comparison tab. So maybe as you're looking at your portfolio and you're looking at, okay, we have, IVE and we have IGSB, or let's actually use IVOO. And you're thinking, well, I want to compare these two securities, or I want to maybe find some comparable securities to them. By going over to quick flows and hitting this comparison tab, I can then search for those two securities we looked at to look at. And then once I plug in those two, you're going to then see it's going to look a little different from the singles tab, but I can come in. I can look at what is the sector exposure of those two. Is there any holdings overlap between those two? And I can also run comparisons as well on them. Last thing here I'll show is we're going back into portfolios, is going to be our attribution tab. So you can see up top, we have a tab called attribution. And this is an extremely powerful tool I see a lot of our clients starting to use now. You can see there's an absolute and relative tab. On the absolute, what you're able to do is give us a time frame, whether that's 1 day all the way up until max. And then within that time frame, we'll tell you which holdings are doing well, what are some top contributors in this portfolio, and what are some top detractors as well in this portfolio. You can also then select by holdings or underlying holdings as well as plugging in as of date up top here as well. What I like to focus on the attribution tab is actually going to be in relative. And what relative allows me to take a look at is I can take this portfolio, compare it to the benchmark, and view the attribution by their equity style. So you can see, as I'm in here, I can take a look and see, okay, in large cap, I hold about 12%. This portfolio, it's returned 22% versus the S&P, which holds about 19%. It's actually returned 20%. So my allocation is going to be a negative 1.4%, but my selection is going to be a positive 32%, 0.32%. And then your interaction is your allocation plus selection totaled, and you'll get your total amount here. You also, again, have the ability to export this as a PDF as well. And scrolling down, looking at there's going to be an attribution bar chart. They'll then break it by large cap, small cap, and then mid cap as well. And lastly, we're going to then show a performance chart of the portfolio's return versus the benchmark's return, and then the excess return at the bottom here for us. And then going back to the portfolio, let's switch back over to our presentation here. So those are just a few ways that we can use YCharts to then plug in that portfolio into YCharts, and then some tools you can use to help analyze and then do some research on that portfolio. I'll go ahead. I'll pause here for some Q&A. We'll pop open the chat and see what questions we have. So the first question we got is, does the portfolio has to select its benchmark? Does YCharts match the appropriate benchmark to compare against? That's a great question. So by default, all of our portfolios will always default to the S&P. They're always going to standard to the S&P total return. But again, you have the ability to then come in and hit edit benchmark, edit them as necessarily. Next question we got is, how is the historical performance being calculated on a client's account? So YCharts pulling in historical account positions from Schwab. This is a great question. So this is considered a static portfolio. So we don't look at historically what their trade history has been. What we are assuming is that they have always held these positions and they will continue to hold them going forward. There's a question here on how accurate and granular are the asset allocations. So they are as accurate as yesterday's close. We do a great job of updating our systems every day. So, if you have an ETF that one week was a mid cap and they were maybe then into a small cap, we would then reflect that change here for us. Okay, there's a question here of how to get back to the attribution screen. Absolutely. So once you're in this portfolio, you'll then see the attribution is going to be a tab right next to the holdings overlap. You'll click into it. And then from here on the left-hand side, you have the option of selecting absolute or relative for you. Was this recorded? It is being recorded, and you'll be getting a video of this as well at the end.
Mustafa, I see a question on here about doing the iRebow export import. Would you mind hopping over to there again? Just show them where they would find that.
We want to first start with support integrations. And then the Schwab, you want to hit activate here as well. Once that's selected and activated, you can come up top to tools, portfolios, import holdings, and you want to select the Schwab and iRebow icon. And you can then select where it says search by, and this is where you would then choose that iRebow option.
And I'll add that there's also the ability through the integration to export from YCharts into iRebow. So you've got two-way integration that's available there. Just make sure in Schwab Advisor Center in the iRebow platform, you'll see a selection in there asking if you want to allow import and export. Just make sure you check that in Schwab Advisor Center if you plan on using both of those functions. And if you want to see how the models work once they're imported into iRebow, on Schwab Advisor Center, if you type in the search bar for iRebow, there's a number of different videos and help guides on there. So that's a great place to learn about how to use the iRebow platform itself.
And then I also saw a question here that says, how often do the portfolios or iRebow sync? It's a great question. So if we actually go up top to support once again under integrations, you'll see we have an option up here that will then change for portfolio refresh. So you'll be the option of doing daily, weekly, monthly, or never. Look, there's a question here. Can you pull in all accounts at once? So it's going to be by portfolio name first, Patrick. I'm actually going to switch over to our presentation here.
See a question here. Are you limited on the number of holdings that can be brought in at the through the Schwab integration? No, there's no limit. Integration allows for all accounts in a master, and it'll have all the holdings in those accounts. I see on here, there's a question. Is there a possibility of a similar integration to be created with Fidelity in the future? I can't comment on that one.
We're always working towards new integrations here at YCharts.
Joking aside, yeah.
Looks like there's also a question here of, does YCharts have a reference catalog of all preset templates or reports that advisors can review? Absolutely. So you can go over into I go into YCharts here. If I scroll up top to Tools, and then I go into the Report Builder function, and I'll select standard ones YCharts has to offer. I can then come in, select Comprehensive Overview. I can hit Duplicate. It's going to then give you a breakdown of what's included in this portfolio here for us. It looks like there's a question here that says, can users create assets by uploading a monthly return series? This will allow for inclusion of private market assets in portfolio analysis. Correct. So if you find that one of your portfolios carries the securities we don't offer here in YCharts, you do have the ability of going up top to Tools. Under Manage, you can see there's a Custom Securities option. This is where you can then create that custom private security. And you can then enter in the return history here. Once a custom security is created, you can then plug it into your portfolios as one of the security holdings. Here, we'll take one or two more questions. Someone asked, can you create a customized blended benchmark? Absolutely. By going up top to Tools, under Manage, we'll hit Portfolios. And this time we're going to hit Create New. We're going to select Blank Portfolio. We're going to then select Benchmark. You can hit Create. You can then enter in the securities for your blended benchmark here. So the last thing I'll touch on here for us is once you're ready to elevate your advisory practice, go ahead and scan this QR code. It's going to give you a contact for the rep over here at YCharts to reach out to you, get more information about YCharts. Fantastic. Make sure there's no other questions. If there are any questions, again, feel free to scan this QR code, reach out to us. We'll be happily waiting for you. But thank you again, everyone, for joining today's session. And we look forward to seeing everyone once again. Take care.